Kate?
Joining us now is former White House spokesman for President George W. Bush, Pete Seat, and CNN political commentator, former spokesperson for Hillary Clinton's campaign, Karen Finney. Karen, when Biden's former chief of staff, when we're talking about Ron Klain, longtime advisor to Biden, said last week that he should really stop talking about bridges in terms of trying to push his economic agenda, is this what we just heard, is this President Biden listening?
Well, I think it's President Biden trying to drive a contrast and to talk about middle-out economics, which means we have to have a strong middle class that's critical to a strong democracy, and drive a contrast with, as he pointed out, someone who inherited $1 million when he started his first business, and we see oftentimes when he's at Mar-a-Lago is golfing all day. I mean, most Americans don't have that kind of time. And so I think he's trying to drive that contrast and show, again, difference of values, but also different economic theory of the case, trickle down versus middle out.
It's interesting because this is exactly the same kind of case that he was also making at some points in 2020. Like, this guy doesn't get you, this guy doesn't speak for you, and we're going back to that. Pete, let me play something else that Biden said to voters along this very same vein.
When I look at the economy, I don't see it through the eyes of Mar-a-Lago. I see it through the eyes of Scranton. He looked at the economy from Mar-a-Lago, where he and his rich friends embraced the failed trickle-down policies that have failed working families for more than 40 years. Scranton values are Mar-a-Lago values.
Saying he doesn't feel your pain, he's out of touch, that is a strategy that, look, it has worked in the past. Should the Trump campaign be nervous about this strategy shift, if it's a strategy shift, Pete?
No, it's an incredibly odd messaging, framing, and contrast from the president. I'm curious to see if he swaps out Scranton for wherever he is on the campaign trail. Is it going to be Milwaukee values and Marietta, Georgia values and Dearborn, Michigan values as he goes along? The other part is,
I can basically tell you yes. We've seen that with presidents past. He's going to, and the key is to make sure you're saying the right city you're in. We've seen that be a problem for presidents past too.
And that could be disastrous if he doesn't. but like, I just want to add too, I think a lot of Americans aspire to live in a place like Mar-a-Lago, and they know in this economy, in this inflationary economy under Joe Biden, that those types of goals, those types of dreams are even further out of reach. So I don't know why he would try to paint this contrast at this time. It makes no sense.
Karen?
Can I just point out, though, I think President Biden is absolutely trying to speak to people's aspirations, but acknowledging that we don't all start out with, a wealthy parent and $1 million. And it's great if you do, but let's make sure the system is more fair. Yesterday he was talking about taxes, for example, for the rest of us who don't start with those advantages. I think that's what he's going to be talking about. Yes, he'll mention the cities that he's in. The other thing I just really quickly want to mention, this issue about Chinese companies flooding the zone. This is a huge issue for American businesses. And we saw Janet Yellen was in China working on this issue recently. And you're going to hear him talk about that more because, again, he's trying to say, here are the things I'm trying to do to lower your costs.
I want to talk to you guys both about the approach of how the courtroom is going to be impacting the campaign going forward, how the Biden campaign plans to deal with maybe Trump in court and facing trial is maybe still somewhat of a question. Here's why I say that. Let me play Biden's campaign co-chair and how he handled talking about this with John.
The former president is otherwise predisposed as a consequence of actions and things that he's done. And everything this guy touches turns to dirt.
Are you dancing around it for a particular reason? I mean,
I'm not dancing around it at all.
Is the campaign going to talk about the fact that the former president is in court?
You asked me a direct question. The president is being the president. He's running the country. He's creating jobs. He's putting people back to work. Donald Trump is stuck someplace else as a consequence of his own actions.
Karen, do you think they should be hesitant to take it on directly?
No, I think he's right that there. I mean, we saw the split screen yesterday. You saw President Biden focused on doing the job, showing up, asking people for their votes. And Donald Trump, who was in court, who, again, even when he walked out of the courtroom, what is it about him? It's about, I'm your retribution, I'm being attacked. And even when he's on the campaign trail, we don't really hear him talking about the people he's actually there to speak to. So I think that's a real contrast.
Well, let's talk about the contrast. Flip side, Trump has been in court. Trump will be in court again tomorrow, Pete. He does seem angry, be it real or be it show, because he has been running on I am your vengeance. He was admonished by the judge for loudly murmuring. Observers in the court also say that Trump seemed drowsy again in court. Is there political risk of Trump losing his temper in court or outside?
Possibly, but the thing he has going for him, Kate, is that there are no cameras in the courtroom. We wouldn't actually see an outburst. We would be taking the word of those who are inside the courtroom on what took place and what happened. But I want to go back real quick to a word that Karen used, unfair. And if you look at polling, especially an AP poll that came out yesterday, the American people see these prosecutions against Donald Trump, a decent number, a plurality. 44% think the New York prosecutors are being unfair to Donald Trump. 42% think the Georgia prosecutors are being unfair. 45% think federal prosecutors are being unfair. So I think some of that, his anger in that courtroom, he's channeling what a large segment of the American people feel about what's happening in that courtroom.
Case in point on both sides, you got to work with what you got when you're in the middle of a campaign. It's good to see you both. Karen, thank you. Pete, great to see you. Thank you. John.